let's go ahead and watch Thaddeus's video. Anything you want to say to introduce this, Thaddeus?
So the context here is that video we were just talking about on the AI channel, which Mohammed Hijab has previously said that he was releasing videos on, and now he says he isn't. Well, that'll be in the video as well. But the context is his long, full confession. And I think it is actually a full confession. It's a full confession of Mohammed Hijab exposing himself, as opposed to, he says it's about other people, but I think he's really talking about himself.
And one thing we do not want is Mohammed Hijab exposing himself, because
that is true.
That's what he's in trouble for now. All right. Here's Thaddeus' new video.
What happens when a Dawah boy gets caught forging a screenshot? He forges a voice note, obviously. Mohammed Hijab just can't help himself, continually digging deeper into trouble as the evidence of his guilt piles up. Now the YouTube channel False Accusations has published a full confession supposedly proving Hijab is innocent of the abuse charges he faces. Let's take a look.
Before we begin, let's make something clear. This channel is not affiliated with Mohammed Hijab.
That's odd. I wonder why Hijab has said otherwise then.
Nor are we based in the UK.
That's odd. This non-UK channel uses a British narrator and bears the handle False Accusations UK. Why that handle?
Maybe you were making a confession about yourself.
No matter. Let's hear that confession.
So did you marry Hijab or not?
I didn't marry him, but if I told people this, they would think I'm crazy and so on.
Do you think?
Oh, hey, yeah, because here's the thing, Thaddeus, everyone is saying, no, this doesn't sound like her, it sounds fake. And I had kind of heard it skimming through it. I was like, no, it does sound like her. But now that I'm listening to it on the headphones, yeah, it sounds totally fake. Let me go ahead and back that up since I interrupted. But yeah, guys, sounds totally fake. I mean, yeah, it's AI. So you take it and you put a bunch of stuff that people have said into it, and then it imitates them and so on. But it's not perfect. It's not perfect. And this sounds fake. This sounds fake.
About yourself.
No matter. Let's hear that confession.
So did you marry Hijab or not?
I didn't marry him, but if I told people this, they would think I'm crazy and so on.
Do you think this is fair on him and his family?
With all due respect to yourself, I can take my rights with my own hand.
Something is very off about this supposed conversation.
That could easily have been authored by anyone.
Let's take a look at the source to figure it out.
This recording was submitted to the Islamic Sharia Council, addressed directly to Sheikh Haitham al-Haddad via a dedicated email channel.
That's odd. Haitham al-Haddad no longer works for the Islamic Sharia Council. And what exactly is a dedicated email channel anyway? What's the real purpose of this email?
Maybe you were making a confession about yourself.
Now let's take a close look at that email.
Everyone still note, Thaddeus always grins at his own videos.
It's true.
It's like a comedian who laughs at his own jokes. Weird.
The Mufti doesn't want this public. So why exactly did he send it to False Accusations then?
Sometimes a lie reveals more about the liar than the one it's aimed at.
According to the email, this was a recorded phone call from a counseling session. Let's be generous and ignore the ethical and legal violations of leaking such a clip and evaluate it on face value. Does this sound like something a therapist would say?
So did you marry Hijab or not?
What about this?
Do you think this is fair on him and his family?
Why the accusatory tone? And why does the reply not answer the question?
With all due respect to yourself, I can take my rights with my own hand.
I know why Hijab would bring his family into this. He's terrified his wife will leave him for cheating. But why would a therapist say this? And how would he even know about Hijab's family to begin with?
Sometimes a lie reveals more about the liar than the one it's aimed at.
False Accusations makes it clear that this clip is uncut.
This clear, uncut voice note.
So why then is it so short? And why does it have sections of absolute silence? Something that can never happen in a raw recording.
Maybe you were making a confession about yourself.
And take
You want to break that down, Thaddeus?
Yeah, so I went through some time analyzing the audio. I also played it side by side with actual clips of Aisha saying the same words, and there's definitely some differences in speaking style and in tone as well, but that's somewhat subjective. But then there's a couple markers of like, this could not possibly be a recording, right? They say this is just an unedited recording, even though it's clearly edited because they obscure the other voice. But besides that, there are portions of it that there is absolute silence. So like you'll listen to a recording and sound silent.
Yeah. So
right?
for everyone who's listening right now, this may be new to you, but like right now I'm talking on a mic. Even when I'm not saying anything and I'm completely silent, like if I pause like this, there's still sound. There's still sort of low-level background sound. And so if you were playing an unedited clip of me, there would be no point in the audio where there's literally no sound. There would be quiet, but if you were to really amp it up and listen closely like on headphones, you could hear just ambient background noise of air and so on circulating and so on. You can hear that. You're saying you can examine it and there's just the sound goes down to zero. There's not even any background sound, which means those pauses and so on are all inserted in there and they're fake. And this isn't someone speaking into a mic. This is a computer trying to do something, and the computer doesn't know enough about make sure there's some low level background noise in the background, something like that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, two possibilities, right? Someone could have edited it, like put a bunch of clips together and accidentally left silence in between them, not knowing that or not thinking about the fact that it should really have some very, very slight background noise. Or it was AI generated and the computer is trying to generate something that is clear, right? So that's easy to understand. It has no purpose of putting in background noise, so it doesn't.
I have to say, Hijab, it's one side that seems to be doing this right now. It's one side that seems to be doing this sort of thing. I mean, any idiot could, plug in your stupid voice into AI and make the AI think, yes, of course, I have a million mutter wives. Of course I do it. I love mutter. It's my favorite thing, and I'm using the ummah. Be very easy to plug that in there. But that's your side that's doing that. And it kind of makes us wonder why your side is the one that's lying and deceiving and blackmailing and using AI to lie and so on. Kind of weird. It's almost like you don't have the truth on your side here, but you're used to that.
So look at the frequency distribution. Remember, this is supposedly a recorded phone call. Something false accusations apparently forgot when they describe it as a voice note.
Sometimes a lie reveals more about the liar than the one it's aimed at.
Whoever made this didn't realize that phones only capture frequencies in the 300 Hz to 3400 Hz range, a holdover from technological limitations of 100 years past. Yet somehow this phone call has frequencies up to 11,000 Hz.
It speaks for itself. And with it,
so if you want
the
to
lie
pause
collapses.
there and go back to where that's on
that sounds like
screen.
some straight up nerd stuff there.
Yeah, that is definitely some nerd stuff. I did a live stream where I went into like far more details. But
like for instance, on Star Trek: The Next Generation, the hertz of the Borg when they're approaching, the frequency of the what is it?
But okay, so the gist is that audio comes in a wide variety of frequencies. Lower frequencies are lower sounds, but most of the human voice is captured in like the 1,000 to 3,000 hertz range. So when they were coming up with, the most efficient way to make phone calls, long time ago, where you're literally going over wires that someone has to literally switch between to make the connections. Like, well, if we just do this narrow frequency, it'll be intelligible. It'll sound a little muffled, right? It'll sound a little weird. That's why phone calls sound a little muffled, but you'll be able to understand everything being said. So to make it easier to transmit, that was the decision made. And that still is in effect today, even though, cell phones are certainly capable of doing much, much more detailed audio. They don't, because it's still the same standards that have been in place for 100 years. So if it was a real phone call, all the audio would be below 3,400 hertz. And yet it isn't like that. It has a wide range of frequencies like a natural voice would.
And so they're claiming this is a a recording of a phone call, and you're pointing out this was not a phone call, you would be getting different readings if there were an actual phone call. So the point is there was never any such phone call, just period. This wasn't from a phone call.
Yes.
Okay. You could have just said, hey, this wasn't from a phone call, and I did some nerd stuff, and I established that it's not a real phone call. Okay.
Yes,
Right.
I could have. And like I said, that was the very abbreviated nerd version. On the stream where I initially looked at it, I spent like 20 minutes showing all the problems with the audio.
All right, guys. So Thaddeus examined the audio in epic nerd fashion and determined that was not the audio from a phone call. He would be getting different readouts from an actual phone call. And so this is all apart from what Behind Veils does and runs it through an AI test, and it says it's something like 98% likely that this was AI generated and so on. Interesting. All right, back to Thaddeus here.
False accusation showed a screenshot proving it wasn't AI.
On what basis should anyone accept your so-called evidence as genuine?
Yes, except that screenshot doesn't show what they ran through the detection. And actually running the confession clip through gives a completely different result. How delusional
look, I got the
does
same
one
result as Behind Veils? And actually, we did
so
this
that wasn't.
independently.
Hang on. So that wasn't you playing their video of them testing it. You independently and separately tested this.
Mm-hmm. And we both came up with the same idea. It's like, so I just figured that the AI detection wasn't very good and you'd get false positives and false negatives. And I was just like going to run a bunch of audio through it and like get readings that I knew were false. And then, but the first thing I thought of is, let me just run through the clip they provided and see what happens. Hey, it says 98%. And then Behind Veils also did the same thing independently. It's like, how lazy and stupid could you be to suggest that we go to this website and it'll prove that it's not AI, and then that exact website that not Mohammed Hijab has in his video says otherwise.
That's why. So guys, everyone catch that. So you got this audio clip. Hijab releases this audio clip on a channel that's not his, and to show that it's not his, they said this channel's not even from the UK, and it's called something UK, right? He forgot they named it that. But they release the smoking gun, the audio clip of Aisha, Muhammad's ex-hotel wife, but supposedly not, confessing that, no, we weren't married, and they release the audio clip and they say, ha ha ha, and we have tested this and we've confirmed that it is not AI. And then Thaddeus and Behind Veils go to the exact same site that supposedly confirms this is not AI, and they run it through their test, and it says 98% likely this is AI generated voice. And Thaddeus, you're sitting there thinking about, like, what? How could they be so lazy? How could they be so lazy and incompetent that they would put this out there and it's this easy to expose the lie? Like, how? That's what I've been talking about. I've talked about this in the past, called it Islam's 99-1 rule. If you have a crowd and 99% of them are just going to mindlessly believe anything you say, and only maybe 1% at most are actually going to look up what you say, it's in your best interest to keep lying. You just keep lying to the crowd. This has been Islam's method going back to the time of Muhammad. When Muhammad's going, oh yes, I'm in the books of the Jews and the Christians, he's talking to a bunch of pagans. They don't know any better. They don't know anything, right? So he can say whatever they want. If 99% of the people are just going to, oh really, he's in the Bible, he says so, then it's in your best interest to just keep lying, because you're getting a bigger and bigger crowd. If 99% of the people are always believing you, then you get a bigger and bigger mob, and the 99% can always silence the 1% who actually look things up and go, I think this guy's actually making things up. So that's always been the method in Islam, and that's why when they started saying things like perfect preservation right down to the letter and the scientific miracles, they know 99% of people aren't going to look this stuff up. And the tiny minority who do look them up, they can be shouted down by the mob. So that has worked for Islam for a long time in Dawah. The problem is all these guys, all these Dawah guys have become conditioned by now to believe that they can say anything they want and get away with it because they've just been conditioned. Hey, no matter what I say, 99% of my people just mindlessly believe me. Well, what's that mean? It means when you need to lie about some woman to cover up what you did to her, you could just put out you don't need to spend a ton of money and get really, really good fake AI clip or something. You don't need to do any of that. You could just put out the cheapest nonsense you can find. And your fans are just going to eat it up and love you no matter what. Unless you get exposed by a sheikh. As long as you're doing that to a woman, they're not going to call you out. If you're messing around with a sheikh, a respected sheikh, some of them might have a problem with it. So that's where hijab actually will have crossed a line with some of his fans. If it hadn't been to the issue with the sheikh, none of his fans would have turned around on it. None of them. They would all, I'm not as serious fans. They would all be completely happy if Mohammed Hijab is banging thousands of Muslim women, turning them all into prostitutes, as long as he's humiliating the kuffar and thumping his chest. They would not care even slightly. But he messed with a sheikh, and now he can't rely on the 99-1 rule anymore because people are actually calling him out. Poor hijab, poor hijab. All right, let me back up here, and let's see.
But they ran through the detection. And actually running the confession clip through gives a completely different result. How delusional does one have to be to pass off a AI fake while telling us exactly how to disprove it?
What he has consistently demonstrated is not accountability, but arrogance.
So Mohammed Hijab, it's time to stop pretending.
Hang on, that is funny. Like he literally told people how to check it and pretended to check it, thinking that no one's actually going to go check it, right? So this would be like me, like I make something up, like I forge something. Suppose I forge a document, and then I say, and I know this is confirmed as a true document signed by George Washington himself because I took it to this antiquities dealer over here on Main Street, 354 Main Street, and he's the leading document and signature analyst in the world, and he is confirmed. Yes, Professor Oopingfoth over there, he is confirmed as the greatest manuscript and signature examiner in the world that this is authentic. And if you don't believe me, just go ask him. And you go ask him, the guy's like, ha ha, obvious forgery. What kind of nonsense is this? That's what he just did.
Well, I guess that's what Allah did, though, right? Because he's like, if you have any doubts about this, go ask
1094.
the Christians and the Jews. And then all the Muslims are like, oh, we have no doubts. We have no doubts.
Mm-hmm. You guys catch that? Surah 10, verse 94. Speaking to Muhammad, says, if you're in doubt as to what we've revealed to you, ask those who read the book before you, talking about Jews and Christians. Hey, go check with them. And everyone's like, oh, but he didn't do it. Yeah, because if he would have, you would have had the same result as this right here. All right. Got about a minute left in here. I backed it up a little.
Mohammed Hijab, it's time to stop pretending. Your lie has revealed who you really are.
No amount of rage can hide the reality. Behind the microphone stands a boy pretending to be a man, small in courage, impotent in character, diminished in every way that matters.
I think it's time you take your own advice.
Stop betraying trust. Stop playing judge. Stop pretending to be Freud. Stop performing therapy on strangers. Just stop. The voice note is out. The lie is dead.
The lie is dead. Hijab is a fraud. This is your champion of Dawah, Muslims. Do you really think he's being any more honest about the truth of Islam than he is about himself?
If this has been forged, what else has been forged? You need to ask that question to yourself.
For even more evidence that the confession clip is a complete fraud, check out this live stream here.
There's nothing there, Thaddeus.
Yeah, I know, because you download the videos.
Look at Thaddeus just pointing at nothing there. So that clip of Ali Dawah, this was fabricated. What else has been fabricated? Yeah, that was from the photoshopped screenshot.
Right, which he's saying, Aisha photoshopped this, but of course it was him or Hijab or someone else in their circle that photoshopped it. And then he's like, you need to ask yourself, whoever's doing this forgery, how can you trust them? And then they forge another thing.
Guys, you
And
catch
by the way,
this?
they also forged a screenshot a second time in that video. It wasn't very notable. They just like they added a timestamp to show when it came from. It wasn't like malicious, but it was a different screenshot of the same thing than they showed before.
You guys catch all of that? We went through this in a previous video, but the hijab camp, and especially Ali Dawah, they were supposedly exposing Aisha for faking, for photoshopping a screenshot from their text messages, and they're like, "Ha, we've exposed her for photoshopping this," and so on. When it turns out they were the ones who photoshopped it. And this was all proven. And so Ali Dawah there, and if she fabricated this, what else is she fabricating? And it's their side that did the fabricating. And then what else are they fabricating? Well, posting an AI-generated voice clip of her confession. This is terrible, guys. And again, the diehard hijab fans, apart from blackmailing a sheikh, which we're going to get into a little bit later, they would have had no problem with any of this. They don't care. They don't care what you do to women. They don't care if you treat them like garbage. That's fine in Islam. I mean, we read in the Muslim source about a guy beat his wife until her skin turned green. Muhammad condemned the woman. How dare you be such a bad wife? Make this guy beat you until your skin turned green. Shame on you, woman.